This is the Jupyter notebook that we have, and now we'll be working through the Jupyter notebook. And this is what is by default opening up in Colab. And we will see a very small, simple use case in terms of how to write a basic prompt. And couple of new learnings that we will have in this notebook is how do we use the Azure OpenAI? How do we specify those endpoint URLs, API keys, all of those kinds of things? And that's the very, very basic demo that we will see for now. Okay. All right. So the first thing that we'll do is we need to connect to the instance. So you can see the initial part is just some headers and all that we have got here. You can ignore all this. And you can scroll all the way down. And this is where the actual Python part is starting from, you can see. Okay, so from OpenAI, import Azure OpenAI. Okay, all right. So the moment you hit enter, the shortcut is basically shift enter. You can click on the play button. This is how you run a cell. And in a cell, there are typically multiple lines of Python code that you have. Okay, so you can actually hit shift enter. And once you do shift enter, you run a cell. And you can also see on the right and top right, a VM is assigned to you. A particular virtual machine is assigned to you. And this is the virtual machine that is assigned to you by default. So Colab gives you a free VM, which is quite a powerful VM is what they give you, like around 13 gigs of RAM is what you're getting right now. Now, what we will do is we want to use some credentials in in our in our Colab notebook, right? This is the small setup that we will do now. Some basic credentials that we will be using, and we will do a little bit of basic setup. And it's a one-time setup that we will do for now, right? So what I want you all to do is go to your secret section. There is a secret section that you will find, right? So once you are then in the secret section, click on add new secret. Please ignore this one. Okay, this is not relevant for you. Just ignore this one. Or let me delete it, otherwise it might be confusing. Click on add new secret. And the name of the secret will be Azure API key. Okay, this is Azure API key. And the value of the secret will be what you will find from here. Go to playground, go to view code, go to key authentication, mind you, key authentication. Okay, go to key authentication, and you can copy your API key from here. So copy your API key from here, go back to the secrets and just paste your API key here, straightforward, and enable notebook access. Okay. No rocket science, simple stuff. So just to repeat, we created a secret. The name of the secret is Azure API key. Now you can actually give it any name. Why have I called it Azure API key? Because in my code, I am saying Azure API key. And the value of the secret is nothing but I've taken it from Azure. Like go to Azure, go to view code. And this is with respect to each one of you. Each one of you will have your own API keys, right? So once you do that, this is how you create a secret. Now, what is the value? What is the benefit of creating a secret? I can just cross it now. It's all saved. Now, when I run this code, my Azure API key variable in Python will have the same string value which I set here. And the major benefit of this is you don't end up displaying it. Like like otherwise what happens is if I share this notebook with you, because that's what we do in the class, right? I'm sharing this notebook with all of you in the classroom. So when I share this notebook with each one of you, I will end up exposing my key, right? So the keys are never, they should never be hard coded in the Jupyter notebook. The keys should always be declared this way. Some other best practices we will discuss later. We use JSON files, we use environment variables, but this is, you can think of it like an environment variable within Colab. Okay, so secrets are like an environment variable within Colab. Okay, so you don't have to, you can straight away access it like this. Yes, please. Huh. No, this is specific to Colab. This is specific to Colab. If you're doing it locally, the way to do this would be you need to create a JSON file. That's also a very common standard. I think you might know it, JSON file. You can create a JSON file. You can have a credentials.json file, and then you can load your, your information from the credentials JSON files. You can do it that way. And it's very easy. I mean, we are all in Gemini right now. So the Gemini is the best kind of code assistant that we have. If you can just see, you actually have a section called generate with AI, right? And you can type it out. You can say, okay, I want to load the. It actually understands because millions of other developers would have written this code before us, right? So You can actually say, I want to load the API key and endpoint URL from credentials JSON file. And you can see how what the code looks like. Okay, so that's interesting. Generate output. Just a minute. I want to get the code to. I think it's trying to load the the keys. Just a minute. I want to get the code to fetch the. Let me put it in a bit of a different way. I think it the you know. Anyway, this oh, it's very interesting. I mean, okay, whatever. I mean, the code will be basically credentials.json. Like you can actually go and so what will happen is you can actually load the JSON file. You can actually load the JSON file, and the credentials can be present in the JSON file. So that's the way how it will work out. Okay, you can see this is how it will look like. I think now it's coming up fine. So load the Azure credentials, load the Azure endpoint credentials, endpoint credentials from the JSON file, and you can hit enter, and it will actually give you the step-by-step way how it is done. Okay, so the JSON file will be there in some folder, dot load, and then within that you can get the endpoint URL. Can you see? This is exactly how it will look like. Okay, so within your JSON file, so somebody asked me that question. So within your JSON, you will have the same way, the same format, no name value pair. So you will have the key and the value. So key will be endpoint, and the value will be the endpoint URL. Endpoint URL will be nothing but this. This is the endpoint URL. Okay. Next is what? Next is the API version. So the key will be API version, and the value will be the version. The version is basically this 2025-001 preview. And again, the key will be deployment, and the version will be the deployment name, which is basically GPT-4 Omni. Actually, the API key will also be there. They have not put the API key. Okay. So this is how it will look like. Okay, and there are multiple things. It's not just, this is not the only thing. You can see there are so many other Azure aspects might also come. Okay, so it depends on what you're doing and how. So all these credentials can be saved in the JSON. Okay, so can you see? I hope that answers your question. Okay, perfect, perfect. And environment variables are also very common. Like you can use something called os.environ. So I mean, if you're using Python, there is something called this. Okay, you can use you can import OS, and you can use the os.environ to also like load environment variables. Okay, so multiple ways you can do it. Okay, yes, please. Somebody was asking, there's another question that was coming. Please. How can you get the value? Okay, the value, you go back to your playground, please. The chat playground. Click on playground, click on view code. Okay, and just go to key authentication and scroll down, and you can get API key. Okay, you can copy it from there and paste it on secrets. So secrets part, once again, just for everybody. So you can click on the secrets and you can add new secret. Name should be the same, and the value will be the whatever you copy pasted. Make sure you enable notebook access. Once that is done, this code should successfully execute. I also want to make sure you're getting the small tick marks. You see the small green tick? The small green tick means that your code is successfully executing. Okay. Now, there is another very, very important thing I would like all of you to do. Very important. Don't, what's that? Yes. Wherever is the Python part you need to run, but you can just safe side run everything. Yes. See, these are basically anyways commented cells. It won't matter much anyways, but that's okay. I mean, just safe side, you can run everything from the beginning, and you can run until here. So you'll get a green tick. The green tick means the cell is successfully executed. All right. So everybody has the environment set up right now, and we have also managed to create the secrets. So what I did was I went to my view code. I went to key authentication. I took the API key from here, and then I created a secret called Azure underscore API underscore key. I put the value, and this is what we got. So we have created a secret in the Colab, and this is as I told you, this is how you will typically share the credentials kind of information. Okay. And the second thing that we have to do is we also need to take the endpoint URL. So make sure your endpoint URL is matching what is present here, and you also have your deployment name which is matching this. Okay. So these two things also need to be set up, and then you can run the code. Shift enter, we can run the code. And this is exactly what we have done. So user data.get Azure API key. And what it means is it will take the secrets called Azure API key. Whatever I defined here, it will take that secret and it will assign it to the Python variable Azure underscore API underscore key. That's it. Now, next, what we have done, this is how we instantiate the endpoint, the Azure API key, and the API version. Now, even this is a credential information. Ideally, what we should have done is even this we should have created a secret for it, but I did not do it. It's okay. I mean, anyways, the key is hidden. So ideally, even the endpoint URL is supposed to be secret. Even this should not be given like this in a notebook. Okay, so this is all part of your the client instantiation that we are doing. And now we come to the actual prompt design. Okay, I think we have already talked enough in detail about the different components of our prompt. So we have talked about system message, user message, and assistant response. And this is our very first example of a simple prompt. Okay, very realistic use case, very real use case where you're an assistant to a hospital administration and you're working on extracting important information from medical notes made by doctors. So the doctor will write a medical note and the assistant will extract the important information from the medical notes. This is a very real use case of how generative AI is getting used. So I know there are a lot of fancy applications we like to talk about, like creating this, creating that, generating beautiful images. But these are fascinating applications and very real world applications of GenAI, which you need to also keep in mind. So from completely unstructured textual data, how generative AI is used to generate a structured output. So this is the classic application of generative AI we are seeing. So the doctors will just give the medical notes, and from that, the LLM will have to extract the relevant information mentioned below in a JSON format. See how we are explicitly specifying the complete detail in the system message. System message is where you define the behavior of the LLM, what it's supposed to do. It has to extract the age, gender, diagnosis, weight, smoking, and you're also specifying what are the data types of these fields and how they should look like. What is the importance of this thing? The importance of this thing is you can basically now take this result and store it back in some other backend database. It is used for information extraction. You can take the data from a text file, and from the text file, the data will be extracted as a JSON. You have a text input, and the data will be extracted as a kind of a JSON file or a JSON output, age, gender, diagnosis, weight, smoking. And then these values will be returned back to some other database table. So the database table will have a data type. A column will have data types, right? Integer type, string type, number type, right? And then you will be able to extract these values and you'll be able to write it back to the database table. This is actually a classic application how generative AI is getting used today. And this is something you will see will be valuable in multiple domains where you have unstructured text data. And from the unstructured text data, use GenAI to extract structured data and then save it back to some table. Anyways, next one is also very similar. And you can see that this is the system message. User message is nothing but what the doctor is entering. The medical notes is what we are giving. And this is how we frame the prompt. System message, user message. And when we run this response dot content, chat completions create, we get the assistant response in a proper JSON file. Okay. Next one is also very similar. We have the same system message, but we're giving a different input. The input is different. The medical notes are different this time. This is for a different user. Let's see what we are getting when we run this for a different user. So we are getting an output that looks somewhat like this. And the interesting part is the model is intelligent enough to understand here for this user, the weight is not defined. So the model understands that this person, the diagnosis is none and the weight is null. So this is not defined. There is no diagnosis and based on the medical notes, the weight of the person has not been defined here. So this is also very useful information. So let's say a hospital administration is trying to structure these medical notes into some backend database. They can easily now filter and they can understand that okay, which were those cases where the diagnosis was not entered properly. So because that's a serious lapse probably from the part of the doctor if they did not enter the diagnosis or something correctly. Some missing values can be identified, stuff like that. All right. So next thing what I did is I actually tried to kind of demo this one. This is a small kind of prompt engineering task which I had. So let me share this with all of you. This was a small prompt engineering task which we had here. And before I discuss this, everybody can take a minute to read through this use case for a minute, what you are required to do. This is actually part of the prompt engineering caselets. Okay, so you can just give it a quick glance. What is, what we are required to do here. Okay, so it's a very simple application of a meeting summarizer. We are seeing a simple application of what we call a meeting summarizer, and the objective is to give the transcript of the meeting, and from the transcript of the meeting, I want the model to generate the summary of the meeting. Okay, so this is the objective. This is what we are needed to do. All of you can just give it a glance, and then we will give the entire meeting transcript, and from that meeting transcript, the summary of the meeting should be generated. That is the objective here, and we want to write a complete prompt for that. Okay, just give it a glance, all of you. Then we'll discuss more about it. So I think it should be clear to all of you the use case. It's quite simple. We are looking at the transcript of a meeting and trying to generate a summary. But the important part here is basically the level of detail at which we are going about with the exercise. So although we are trying to do a simple summarization, but the summarization exercise is very detailed. We are trying to explicitly specify what are the different things that we want to be part of our summary. It is not just a very generic summary that we want. We want a very specific summary, and we want certain details to be part of our summary. Okay. And now we go to the notebook, and you can see how we have explicitly specified what the system message will be. Because remember, the system message is what guides the overall behavior of the system. So here we are specifying explicitly what are the different components that should be part of my summary. So the date of the meeting, a summary of the overall objective, the participants who were there, the discussion points, the hierarchical points, and all that. Okay, so this is what we do. And we use triple quotes because it's a string in Python. So triple quotes is a very, very good way to define a multi-line string in Python. The system message, the user input is basically the complete transcript that we talked about, that John and Sarah, right? Mike was also there. So this is the system message, this is the user input. And based on that, this is the assistant response I'm getting.